There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we ready?
We are.
Well, welcome to the Sports Wrap here with George and Ringer. I don't know, was this show 6, 7, forever? I think, George, that people might want us to keep doing it this way, but I think in honor of June next week, we should try to do a show that's where maybe we could actually do it with like we're in the same building.
Well, you know, and one of the things that's going to happen, our old stomping grounds Muni is going to open up on Monday, and we could do it outside underneath the tent.
That's a possibility. We might be able to
especially if it's nice.
That. Yeah. Let's.
I agree.
It's time, right?
This is amazing stuff. And if we were 3,000 miles apart, I'd say yes. But we're just a couple of blocks, and besides, we kind of enjoy the after production.
Well, yeah, you know, you got to socialize with everybody and see how everybody's doing, right?
That's a fact.
Well, where should we start? What would you like to start talking about this week?
Well, I tell you what, the first thing I'd like to start is the match. They call it the match, and I am not a golfer nor a golf fan. And here it was. There was Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady and Manning. I'm going to say Archie, Peyton Manning, and they're all out there.
Eli, so we had
Eli. But they were out there playing golf in the rain, and they were all hooked up, and they had commentators by Charles Barkley and Samuel L. Jackson and all the rest of these characters, and it was as much fun as I've ever seen a golfing match. And they would play, you know, who can hit the longest and who can hit the farthest. And I'm telling you right now, you know, Tiger Woods laid one about 350 yards down there. And Charles Barkley says, now you know what I have in common with Tiger Woods. We're both black. And, you know, and there was nothing serious about this match. And I was going to turn it off, I guess maybe finally about the 15th hole I did, but I was laughing so loud. And Sue, what's so funny? You aren't going to understand. 4 guys running around in the rain.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And I tell you, you know, it just kind of tells you we are a sports addicted culture, because if I can sit down there and watch that for an hour and a half, you know, I can do anything. But it was really, really good.
And they raised $20 million. That was the better part of it.
Well, and I mean, you watch Tom Brady go out. I mean, the ball would go to the left, the ball would go to the right. The ball never went down the middle, and he was having a terrific time. He comes on to the 7th hole, and he's got a 200-yard shot to onto the green, and he drops that sucker right in the hole. Now, he looked at it. Yeah, he couldn't believe it. None of the rest of them could believe it either. So it's kind of like going fishing with somebody that can't catch nothing. Then all of a sudden he gets the 10-pounder. It was really funny.
Yeah, we as we mentioned before we started the show here, that on Sunday I had went up the North Shore, so I didn't get to watch, but I was kind of following along on my phone while my wife was driving us home, and they were talking about how poorly he was playing, and I'm like, and then it says he holed out, and I'm like, nah, that it must be. So then of course I had to read about it and everything else. So. And then he split his pants, so he really got to laugh at himself, right?
Oh, I'll tell you, between Brady and Manning, they were having a good time. And just because you're really one of the finest quarterbacks to ever play the game doesn't mean that you can swing against the little white ball. You know, especially against Nicholson and Woods, you can tell the difference between an amateur and a pro and those guys.
Yeah, there's no doubt about those 2 older guys, and I say older because they are older than both of them.
Yeah.
I think, well, Peyton might have been pretty close to Tiger's age. They might be pretty close to the same. But yeah, it sounded like they had a good time. It was good theater. Now they're already talking about that they need to have the next one. They got to get more people involved and everything else. So, but the golf season is going to start pretty soon. So I don't know how the match number 3 or whatever they're going to call it probably is going to have to wait probably till sometime in, who knows, February maybe or something.
Well, you know, and Brady said on one hole that he muffed, he said it was the crowd noise that got him. And, you know, and so they have a sense of humor. They went out there and did the job. I was real proud of those guys.
What else did you watch on Sunday, or did you watch any of the NASCAR from Charlotte?
Well, I watched little NASCAR from Charlotte, and as it turns out, there was rain delays and all the rest of that. But the guy that won it in overtime. Now, I had never heard of overtime in NASCAR before, and I thought, who can you ask? And I've tried to come up with somebody who I can ask, but if you take a look at the formal scoring, yeah, he won in overtime. And I don't know just exactly what was going on, but it was pretty excited, and he won by a bumper. And so,
See, I'm not a big fan of these races within the races. They got these legs. Okay, we got 90 laps for the first leg, and then we got 90 laps, and then we're gonna bring everybody in, and we're gonna. Hey, if we're gonna go race 600 miles at Charlotte, then put the flag down at the beginning, the green flag down at the beginning, and we're gonna run 600 miles. I don't want to hear about any breaks or what. I don't want to hear about any of this other stuff. I just want you to go race 600 miles. So when NASCAR went to that, that's when they officially lost me.
Well, is that for gambling purposes, or what is that?
Well, I think they think it keeps people aren't going to watch 600 miles. They think unless there's something going on in the first hour and a half. I probably can argue with you on that. But all of a sudden, are we going to start worrying about during a football game that the New England Patriots get 2 extra points in the standings because they were ahead after the first quarter, or they get 3 extra points because they were ahead at halftime? I see that kind of.
I know
it's gimmicky, and let's just go out and race. And so ever since NASCAR went to this whole race within a race within a race within a race, and then I understand if you want a fair finish and the whole overtime thing. I get it. You want it to be right, and sometimes you got to go to extra laps to finish it the right way. And of course, they always wanted. Well, there can't be any yellow flags. You can't have any accidents. Well, you could be there forever. Somebody in the back row, a teammate of the guy who's in second place, can say, "Well, my guy doesn't have a chance to win. If I wreck, we get another chance to win the race." And to me, that was just malarkey. And so when they finally went to, okay, we're going to finish it this time, no matter what happens behind, we're going to finish this thing. They started to do a little bit back to the right way. But I think some of these old time racers like Richard Petty, and you can go on and name all the old guys that the Carol Yarboroughs and everybody, they got to look at this and go, what are we doing? Well,
yeah,
let's just go out and race, and what happens.
They were basic stalkers. They had no problem with that. They just, the whole thing was based on running from revenuers, for crying out loud, carrying whiskey. And so, they knew what the purpose was.
Absolutely. So does that mean because you were watching golf and racing that you didn't watch any of the Lance 30 for 30 thing on ESPN?
I didn't watch any of the Lance. I actually forgot that it was on. But it'll be on again. And I did catch a little bit more of Last Dance.
Okay.
It's pretty good. But there was it's very good actually. And as the more I watched, I started thinking, there's some people that they didn't interview here that probably should have been involved. And I would have liked to have seen a few more people. But other than that, it's even Magic Johnson says LeBron James is the best basketball player to ever have lived. And that's Magic saying that. He says, what can you say? Michael Jordan, yeah, he was good. He was the GOAT. He was the one that made it go.
So somebody said the basketball players, football players, hockey players of 25, 30 years ago don't have the athletic, the weightlifting, all the stuff that they've got going on for them now. So those guys couldn't probably compete with the guys these days. And I'm like, I didn't like that comparison. And I'll tell you why, because Michael Jordan in the 90s had the best of the best. So he had the best of it, and yeah, maybe he doesn't have
he
what
lifted
LeBron.
weight. He lifted weight 6 days a week. You know,
But,
he was
but
in the weight room
apparently,
constantly.
but apparently, according to this comment, it's not as good a weightlifting as what LeBron and the rest of the people are getting today. And I'm like, I don't buy that. You compare yourself with the masters of the time, and then I understand you. How do you compare a Jordan who was 6'5", 6'6", with a LeBron who's 6'9"? They're different. They're different creatures. They're different body types. What's the right way of saying it? It's like comparing Russell to whoever. So it's tough. It's something that I think makes us sports geeks have something to discuss. But
it does. One of my favorite ball players growing up was Elgin Baylor. And Elgin Baylor and Dr. J, and they went to the net from the free throw line, and gravity meant nothing to them. And so off they go. But Elgin Baylor, he could roll that ball around, deal a game of cards, and then go in for the layup. I mean, these guys really can handle the ball and really play well. Whether or not they have the physical strength that these guys do, yeah, maybe not. Maybe they don't even have the speed. But boy, I'll tell you what, Jerry West jumping from the key, hard to beat in any age.
Well, and I think that's another conversation, but are we talking about athletes these days, or are we talking about basketball players? And I'm not saying Jordan was a great jump shooter, but he had that fall away jumper that you couldn't really defend.
No.
I mean, I look at LeBron James and I go, can he shoot the basketball? Yeah, okay, maybe a little bit. He hits a couple of threes every once in a while, but he gets most of his baskets going to the free throw line. Michael Jordan did a lot of that too, going to the basket, drawing contact, those kinds of things. But I guess I look at some of these guys, and I'm not saying shooting the basketball is the only thing, but I don't know. It's still Mike to me. He's still the best.
The first time I saw Magic Johnson, he scored 9 points, and he reinvented the game. He was only a freshman at Michigan State, and I looked at my cousin. What was that we just saw? I don't know. 13 assists might have had something to do with it, but in the 6 or 8 rebounds, for a point guard, it wasn't bad. He was that kind of guy. So they are really, really great. And Bill Russell and the Birdman and all the rest of these. Hey, it's hard to beat these guys in terms of just out and out basketball.
I was watching PTI before we went on here this evening, and it was kind of interesting because they were talking about Robert Parrish, who played with Larry Bird.
He did.
And he talked about the fact that Larry Bird would never have done it like Jordan did it because he was a more positive. He didn't jump down your throat. He did it in a more positive way. Not saying better or worse, whatever.
Yeah.
But you remember, Parrish went and played for the Bulls and played with Jordan. And one day, Parrish screwed up a play, and Michael told him he was going to kick his butt for screwing the play up. And he said, "No, you're not." And he said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "No, you're not, because you're smarter than that, because I'm going to clean your clock," essentially. And basically, after that, Jordan left him alone.
How would you like to trade punches with Robert Parrish?
Hey, ask Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah,
ask Bill Laimbeer. He ended up on his backside trying to. So Jordan could try to intimidate you, but he was also smart enough to know that he probably couldn't have gotten away with that.
That's a good story.
There's quite a bit of the arm reach.
Yes, there was.
I don't know if Jordan would have got close enough.
No, I don't think so. It wouldn't have lasted long.
That's for sure. Well, of course, the NHL announced today their playoff format, which a lot of people who may or may not watch us here in the Great White North area probably pretty interested in. But the NHL announced today the regular season is over. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the top 24 teams are making the playoffs. And the top 4 teams are going to play a round robin, 1, 2, 3, 4 from each conference, to see who's going to get the 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds. And then 5 is going to play 12, 6 is going to play 11. And so our Minnesota Wild are into the playoffs. They are the number 10 seed. and they will be taking on Vancouver, who is the 7th seed. And the Wild actually went 2-1 against Vancouver during the regular season. But it got me to thinking, with 3 months in between, because they're talking that training camp won't start until at least July 1st. So they're talking these playoff series may not start till like July, 15th, 10th?
You got to have a couple of weeks.
You're going to have 4 months off. So throw those records out the door in my mind. I mean, they really mean nothing, right? I mean, the teams are going to be in different places than they would be in a traditional regular season. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in these best-of-5 series. These 5-12, 7-10 matchups are going to be best-of-5. But the most interesting part of it was I had heard they were thinking about maybe like 8 cities to be playing these games in. They're down to 2 cities. They haven't named those 2 cities yet because they got to see where the testing is at. But these games will all be played in 2 hub cities. And, of course, St. Paul is one of those hub cities that they were talking about in the 8 or 9 because they've got the XL and then they've got the training facility just less than a mile away. So they were talking St. Paul, of course, no fans. But at least, you're not playing someplace very hot. I mean, Minneapolis can be warm, but at least you're not dealing with 100 degrees in Dallas. So it'll be interesting to see where these things are at. I'm sure the governors of all the states will discuss things and how things are going to open up. But it is interesting that we are looking forward now. Like, okay, it's going to come here eventually once they dot all the I's and cross the T's.
Well, I at least they're planning and they're working real hard on coming up with some kind of solution. The NFL, on the other hand, they're just going to go full go. They're planning that to have 50,000 people in their stadiums the first game, with the exception of Pittsburgh. They only sold half their tickets, and Miami they got a seating capacity right now in their mind about 15,000. So, but everybody else, the NFL, and they said, well, how can you do that? And they says, well, we're taking the best case scenario and working from there.
Well, I think if Pittsburgh sells half their tickets now and they decide that they can go full blow and have everybody there, the tickets
they can sell the rest.
They'll sell the rest pretty quickly. There'll be lots of sports-starved people. Well, they don't have any hard times ever selling out anyway.
That's right.
Just ask my brother, the fool Pittsburgh Steeler fan that he is. He'd fly out to Pittsburgh on a moment's notice to be able to go watch the Steelers. So he went to London a few years ago to watch them. Over in London.
He can't go this year.
Yeah, you're not going to this year for that kind of stuff. You can't
go to Mexico City or any of those places either. And then Major League Baseball. Now, they seem to be inching towards each other. And I do use the term inch. But it seems like they might be able to come up with some kind of agreement where, everybody is happy. I'm not sure just how that's going to work. It's going to come in different phases.
They announced today that the highest paid players could be possibly talking a reduction in salary by 60%. So I'm going to I'll take Mike Trout, for example. He's making about $38 million a year. So you take 60% of that, and if you want to do the math quick, I don't know, about $23 million. So he's going to play the last part of the season for $15 million. And I know that's a lot of money, folks. I get that.
I'm getting my breath back. But
are you telling me that these guys are going to agree to that?
No, I don't think they will.
See, and that's why baseball's in a tough spot because they're not, they're talking to maybe a 60-game season now versus 162. So that's like 60% of the season. I mean, that's the math on that. So I understand where the owners are coming from, but at the same time, I don't know. It's tough because if I get injured, if I'm on the injured reserve list,
or you get sick,
or I get sick, I still get my money in a normal season, 162 game season. Yeah. Even if I blow, well, look at it. We'll talk about Byron Buxton. How much money have we spent on him for the number of games? I mean, holy smokes. The way he's injured, but yet we keep paying his salary. So I shouldn't say we the fans, we kind of pay for that. But how do you justify to these guys that, okay, you're only playing a 60-game season, but now I've got to take that same amount of pay cut, even though I'm taking a higher risk and doing things way differently. And I just wonder, I don't see it working. I seen that being as a big stumbling block.
Well, it very well might be, and I want this to be a lesson to everybody. Fans count. The money raised by those ticket sales and by all the rest of it, food and the rest, man, that's huge. Merchandise alone pays for an awful lot of those contracts. Yeah. So it's a strange situation for baseball. It really is.
Well, now even think about this NHL playoff system, because you're going to have essentially 12 series going on at the same time in 2 towns. So you're going to play 6 games a day. So some of these guys are going to be playing at 10 o'clock in the morning, possibly 11 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And then they're going to be playing at 10:30 at night. Well, think about the NHL Network and NBC Sports, and think about what little amount of work is going to be done at work when these people are actually have their TVs on and they're watching the NHL, because their team's playing at 1:30 today, and we've got to be able to watch it. So,
the announcers these days are doing it off the TV too. Yeah. So it's a strange situation. And so what does the NBA do? We're going to Disney World.
We're going to. And of course, Damian Lillard came out today, basically said, look, if you're not giving us a chance to make the playoffs, I ain't playing. I'm not coming down taking a chance of getting sick and whatever else. If you don't give me a chance to play, to have a chance to make the playoffs, I think Portland, they said, was 3.5 games out of a playoff spot. I don't know if I can argue with them on that. The NHL said the regular season's done, and they expanded it. And I think that's what the NBA should do.
I think they should too.
They're in a very similar time frame.
Yeah, they are.
These teams that are out, just tell them to stay home and move it out to 24 teams. I really like the idea what the NHL came up with. And Bettman said it in his announcement today. Everybody who had legitimately would have had a chance to make the playoffs is in the playoffs. So now they all have a chance. Nobody can say, the while we're complaining, while we're 3 points out or 4 points out of a playoff spot, but we've played 3 less games. Well, how are you going to make it fair for us? Well, they made it fair. Everybody's in that had a legitimate chance, and now let's go play. And yeah. I think if the NBA took that same format to it, I think they would see something very good there. But they're talking about playing some regular season games yet, the NBA, and the scary part is if you don't think about this now, the playoffs for like the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, they usually go for almost 2 months, right?
Right.
And I know that they play around with the TV a little bit, but if you start on July 15th, that gets you almost to September 1st.
And when does the season start?
Well, they're supposed to come back like September 15th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually when they start playing games. Their training camp's already started. So how do you do this and not extend it out so far that you affect the 2021 season? So I don't know what's exactly going to happen, but we'll see.
Well, and I was even thinking about that because of limitations on high school football. Why can't they start high school football if everything levels off a little bit, the 1st of August, and then continue it by the time you're done 1st of October, you're done with the better part of your season in case there's another spike.
That's what we talked about last week with some schools going back sooner. I think the difference between college and pros is that they can probably afford to pay for tests for their guys. I think to test kids at the high school level, when I'm going to pick the football, what do you got in the state of Minnesota? I think it's like 16,000, 18,000 kids that play football every fall.
Yeah.
How are you going to try to test those kids on a regular basis to make sure that I don't know. And to me, that is still the stumbling point with this whole thing is the colleges and the pros, they've got money. to go do these kinds of things. And if they don't have the money, they get on the phone with somebody and say, hey,
we need the money.
Can you send us another 10 grand? We really need this. And so they've got guys that do those kinds of things, and gals that do those kinds of things. So I'm concerned about the high schools having the ability to be able to do this. I don't know. It's going to be, because baseball is going to start this summer. Now they're already talking about on June 1st in Minnesota, you're going to be able to have your pods, 8 to 10 players, 2 coaches, whatever it's going to be, and all this other stuff. And then I've been reading online that, Babe Ruth is planning on the Babe Ruth leagues are going to plan to play. They're going to plan to play baseball this summer. And so a lot of these towns where they had American Legion are going away from that, and they're going to get in with the Babe Ruth, and they're going to go play baseball. And they're going to find a way to do that. And try to take care of things. So to me, that's it's something that's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because these kids are going to go, and you're going to be close to each other, catchers and batters, first baseman holding the runner on at first base. They're going to be close to one another. You're going to have umpires out there. So we're going to get to see before the football season, before the volleyball season, before the cross country season. And I talked about cross country running. I think that very easily could happen. That very easily could go on. But they talk about, and as I'm talking here and getting more and more worked up about it, the spittle's coming out of my mouth.
Exactly.
And that's what they're concerned about. So in volleyball, you don't necessarily have so much of that because you're not necessarily in close contact. But what do volleyball players do before they hit the ball? They put, they do this. Well, baseball players, what do pitchers do? They lick and they rub the baseball. Well, how do you stop those involuntary? Because most guys do it with, or gals,
you don't even think about it.
Thinking about it.
Yeah.
Now in football, I'm going to line up against you, and you and I both played football. I've been hit hard enough where snot has come out of my face.
Oh boy!
How do you stop that from happening? And everybody being concerned that, well, he's a carrier, she's a carrier. I just don't know how.
So what you're suggesting is
at the high school level, how it works.
We're going to be putting all of this on stay until we can find a vaccine.
Well, then I would say there will be no football season. There will be no high school sports in 2021.
Yeah,
maybe all the way through if that's what the case is going to be. And we're not saying that that's what's going to happen.
I'm not.
But I mean, to me, if that's reality, if that's the mentality of the people out there to make this go, then I could see this entire next season go by the wayside for all sports, because I mean, they're talking January 1, maybe to have that. So we'll see. It's something that we've bantered about before on this show, and I'm sure we're going to continue to banter about it. So hopefully things will go sooner rather than later.
I think so. I hope so. Me too. Whatever this summer is going to be.
We talked about last week, George, that we were gonna mention some of the seniors.
Let's do that.
Let's take care of that. I contacted some of the coaches and had them send me the kids who would have been seniors that would have been playing sports this fall, and so I just, because I had an idea, but I wanted to be sure that I was getting everything correct, and I actually got a text message from the final coach here as we're doing him, and so I'll just mention them as I've got them written down here. For baseball, Anthony Sari, Braden Dremel, Travis Kaler. Those were the 3 guys that we would have been watching that were seniors.
Certainly.
For softball, Macy Marcotte and Caitlin Stavish. The golfers would have had no seniors. I found that very interesting. I thought that might be the case, but I wasn't sure. That's boys and girls.
And they got a pretty good golf team coming back.
And they've got Coach Casaretto is pretty worked up about this boys team that he's going to have next year now. That's, they'll be seniors next year. So we'll be looking at that. And then in track and field, Holly Wolf, Melody Rule, Gracie Bard, Jake Erickson, Ben Skisted, Kian Gonzalez, and Jackson Schultz would have been the seniors that, lost. These are the kids that lost their spring seasons, their last spring season.
Yeah.
And so we, of course, sympathize with them or empathize with them, whichever is the right word for the situation. And I know I tweeted out yesterday, as I was doing all my driving around the last 4 or 5 days, that, we would have had 2 days of this if the weather held out. We'd have 2 days of the softball tournament done. Track and field subsections done. Today being Tuesday, today would have been a huge day. Golf would have started, the Section 728 golf tournament would have started today. Softball would have been in day 3. Baseball would have gotten started today. Track and field would have gone off in a couple of days with their section meet. This was one of the busiest weeks of the season. I mean, we always talk about March Madness and October and all this other stuff. This week is the craziest week for people like me who used to be in the radio gig. There was no way you could cover everything. And I begged and pleaded with section personnel, you need to space this stuff out so that the kids get the proper coverage that they deserve. Because radio and newspaper people can't be in 4 different places at the same time. And Thursday, when you had the section track meet, section golf, baseball, and softball all going on, it was impossible. But it was a busy week. It was a great time. It was a great time for a sports geek like us because there was somebody to follow. There was a great story going on. Somebody was either repeating as a champion or somebody maybe was going for the first time. And, of course, you had your individual sports like track and field and golf where these kids were doing just phenomenal heights or throws or whatever. And so it was such an exciting time. And I think Saturday morning when I was driving to my parents' place and thinking about the grass turning green and the leaves coming on the trees and looking around, that meant it was tournament time for spring sports.
That's right.
And it kind of really hit me that, wow, we're missing out on this. And there's memories that we think about in playoff runs and tournament runs and whatever else of past years that will never happen for this spring sports. And I'm not just talking about what the kids experience. I'm talking about what the fans experience. I think I go into it as much as a fan and live and die getting to go to the state track meet, getting to go to the state softball tournament, the state baseball, the state golf. I've gone to all of those over the past few years, and it's such a big thing to have that opportunity to be able to do that. So it's unfortunate that we're not going to get to do that.
It is, yeah. And I know it hurts the kids, but I just want them to know it bothers us too. Now, the football team had 10 seniors last year, and I'm just, John Bolger, Jackson Germain, Jay Saline, Travis Kaler, Noah Mathis, Devin Reamer, Anthony Sari, Jackson Schultz, and Connor Tominski, all of which contributed to what I saw as the best football team that we've had in any number of years, and was no small way. I mean, when you have John Bolger come out and hook up with Jackson Schultz and with Anthony Sari, and not to mention that Riley Larson guy. Well, you had 4 of the finest receivers in northern Minnesota, and actually you had a quarterback that couldn't get the ball to him. That was as much fun watching last year as I saw. And some of these guys are coming back. We said 2 years ago, after they lost all those good seniors, this team is going to be a better team coming back. Well, the team was. And they ran 5-3. There were times that they didn't play so well. There were other times they played over their head. And this was a very fun team to watch. One of my favorites, of course, is Noah Mathis, the football player, wrestler. And I remember the last home game against Virginia. He was looking for people to knock over. And, and he was coming off the ball about 2.5 feet and hitting these people and just kind of exploding into them. And they couldn't get out of the way fast enough. And when you see know how hard he can go and how tough he could play. And the other one, I mean, there was Noah and there was Travis Kaler and Anthony Sari and Jackson Schultz. So these guys, when they were freshmen, they were starting on linebackers and stuff. They dive into the hole. You think, oh, they're going to get killed in there, and they'd come up holding a leg or gnawing on an ankle or something. But they played real hardcore. By the time they were seniors, they put up a really good defense. And and as we know, defense dictates your success, and they were doing that. But these 10 kids, and we have 10 juniors to replace them that last year. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do it quite that well. I mean, when Jackson Germain came out, he was one of my faves. I knew him over at the weight room. I knew as soon as he started butting heads, he was going to enjoy the game, and he had a great season.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so I go through all the rest of these, and there's 10 of them that all made a serious contribution to last year's success. That's all you got to say about those seniors is 10 seniors. That's good. You can win with 10 seniors.
And then you talk about those kids, and then you talk about them, how many of those played hockey, because they had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 by my count seniors on the hockey team. And almost all those names that you said for football, we're playing a second sport in the
hockey or basketball.
And one of my complaints about kids is that they're not playing enough of a variety of sports, that they're only playing one sport. And 2 is enough for me. I'll be happy with 2. But these kids who only play one sport, I think they're missing out. It's not that.
Yes, they are.
Whatever. It's not whatever, just baseball or just softball or just hockey or just football or just basketball. I think these kids need to understand that there are opportunities that you're never going to have ever again to play. You'll probably never play hockey. You'll never play football the way you play it at the high school level, because most hockey leagues are no check leagues. You'll never have enough equipment to go play a football game the way you play it in high school. And I think some kids miss out on that opportunity, and it's unfortunate. I think some people think I'm selfish because I'm a football coach and I want all kids to play football. I think I can talk from experience when it gets taken away from you, or when you no longer have that ability to play at that next level and you miss that son of a gun of a game because you don't get to play it anymore. That's tough, and you'll never get that opportunity. Most people never after the high school level. So I've always tried to talk to kids about it that way. But at the same time, in order to play football, you got to want to hit somebody else. You got to be willing to be hit and to hit somebody. Football is that, and it's not for everybody. So I also had to come to the realization that there were George, you know what I'm talking about. I think there is some exhilaration when you put that perfect tackle or that perfect block on another guy. For me, there was an adrenaline rush that came from that. But not everybody gets that adrenaline rush from going out and socking it to another person. So it took me a while to understand that. I just thought everybody liked to go and tackle. If you're a guy, you just got to go and tackle somebody. And there's girls probably out there.
Good clean tackle for a loss. It's as good as a kiss for a pretty girl. Well, not quite. But you, and I know I'll say this about all the people that are in the Hall of Fame. There is very few one sport people in there. They all love sports, and they were all able to do all kinds of them. And sports to them was a seasonal thing, And so, I have to agree. Sports is to be loved, and if I can watch golf in the rain and enjoy the heck out of it, I know I'm a sports fan. So anything with the score on it.
Well, as long as you brought up the Hall of Fame, I'm going to bring this up. Today, the Bronco Athletic Hall of Fame announced that we are postponing our induction ceremony until April of 2021.
Okay.
So we're just going to push everybody back. We're not going to have a new induction class, at least as far as things look right now. We're just going to ride with the 4 individuals and the team that we were going to induct this past April. We're just going to push it back a year and see what happens. So I know there's some people out there who have already paid for tickets. You may want to stay with those tickets and just leave it that way. Some of you may have bought tickets and want refunds. So I'm putting it out here. Not that we have a large following, but maybe some people out there will get their tongues wagging. And I put it out on Facebook and Twitter today as well, that was the decision of the committee to back things up. And so hopefully we will be able to make sure everybody is happy with their decisions and everything else going forward. So it's unfortunate that we had to do that, but that is the best decision that we can make.
So how fix for time there, bud?
Oh, we got about 40 minutes in.
Okay, well, just a couple of things I wanted to make a mention that a very fine basketball coach, Eddie Sutton from Oklahoma State, because a really good friend of mine's on the Oklahoma State Hall of Fame, Charles Scheffel, and so Eddie Sutton became a guy that I followed quite a bit. 25 NCAA tournaments, 806 wins. Like anything else, he got into Kentucky and got into a mess, so he had to bail out of there. But you know, a really fine, a very fine coach for his era, and I wanted to make mention. Also, I'm getting tidbits from Michigan. Harbaugh is starting to pick out blue chips, and he's getting a lot of them. And so I just want to make mention. Yesterday, I saw him do a hand flip or a cartwheel. Yeah. Because he picked up this kid from down south who's a linebacker who's probably the #1 recruit in the country, and Harbaugh seems to be real happy with that. Also, just one other story. I got a story. Okay. This is consequences of the pandemic. Thomas Werner won the Iditarod race, only the second time he's run it, and so he won the Iditarod. The thing is about Thomas, he's from Norway. So since the end of February, he has been stuck in Alaska because of travel restrictions with 16 dogs. Oh. And he says it's not all bad. He loves Alaska. He says, but I have a wife and children and 35 dogs, and she's a full-fledged veterinarian and is very, very busy. So he's going to try to get home this week. He's hoping to get home this week. And he says, I do know that I'm going to be saying yes, dear, a lot for the next year. And so I took that as, here, this is something that you and I can learn from, because we are, the way we are. And, so I just listen to old Thomas. And he won the Iditarod, for crying out loud. What would have happened had he lost? But he did not. And the other thing that I have to bring up, of course, is we lost a great Bronco. And I'm talking about Larry Roach, class of '64. He a great goaltender, and I mean an underrated goaltender, except that he went to Michigan State and won a national championship while he was there. So he played with some really good guys, and in '63 and '64, Larry was the king. On top of that, you go out there and find a nicer guy. You really can't do it. I got a clock downstairs that tick-tock Doc fixed for me, and he had a clock and he couldn't get it fixed, so he went to school, and the guy says, well, why don't you learn how to do it and I'll start a business. So that's what he did, and cleaned and fixed his own clocks. But he worked as aviation, directing traffic, director. He did that for a lot of years. He graduated with a degree in history and wound up directing airplanes. A very talented guy. He married Audrey Hendrickson from International Falls, and she, class of '68. She was every bit a gem that he deserved, and they're very, very happy. They had a great life. They had 3 great children, one of which has passed before that. That was Tony. He was a good cousin of our friend Michael's, and Tony passed about the time Mike was going to compete in the state track meet, and Mike couldn't compete. But these people are going to be, they're going to really miss Larry, as we all will. And we had a lot of really good goaltenders hanging around, a lot of good hockey players. But I take a look at a picture. Let me see. Let's see if I have a picture here.
Yeah.
Okay, and there he is, laying down on his butt, and he had just won. He had just won the 1964 state championship, and that's the championship picture. And he's got this great big smile on his face, and it's you could take a look at Pete Haig over there, Pete Fitchuk. He's got bandages cracked all over his face because he had his jaw. And you don't see Tim Sheehy in this picture. You don't see Tim Sheehy in any of the after game pictures. He's being interviewed. And so that's why Timmy's not in that picture. He was out getting interviewed for television. Tim could do that. He had the charisma. But these were great guys, and Larry was a great hockey player and good football player. These were all around athletes, and my best wishes to Audrey and the family, and I feel really bad for you.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to meet the Roaches when we inducted the 1962 hockey team in a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I had a chance to sit down and talk, and as I do with most of the guys that get inducted, which for me is probably the highlight of it all, because for you, you got to meet most of these people when you were growing up or through your travails and everything else, and I get to meet them, and it never ceases to amaze me that these guys remember the games like they were played yesterday.
Oh, they do.
So,
they do.
I mean, we all have memories that are vivid in our head, but these guys talk about these games like they were played yesterday, and it just it's amazing because I can pull out the videotape of a 2001 football game or whatever it is, and I can start watching and going, okay, I remember, because I watched that game maybe 8, 10, 12 times. These guys probably didn't have the games videotaped.
They didn't, no.
And so for them to remember them like they do, and maybe they're lying through their teeth to me, but the way they talk about them, the other people are like, that's exactly how it happened. Yeah, I remember it that way too. And so, yeah, there were some great times. And like I said, for me, to get a chance to meet these individuals is one of the highlights of the whole Hall of Fame experience. And so, again, I had a chance to meet Larry, and like I said, just that one time, I believe. And like I said, you talked about him, what a great person he was, and I agree with you 100%.
No, on top of that, you take a look between Lefty and Larry and Ronnie Beck, how many games were won. It's just amazing. That's an
impressive number.
And the one story, he handled the goal stick with the left hand, and he was not a lefty.
Okay.
He used the left-handed goal stick. You know who taught him to do that? Lefty Kern, of course. And they were neighbors. They were just down the street. And so he learned to play goalie from Lefty, and he's a right-handed guy, and he put the stick in his left hand, which is which is strange.
That is strange. You
do
that all the time.
But I do know when they have when they have a funeral for Larry, whatever it is, Lefty will be there. They were that close, and Lefty's that kind of guy.
Yeah, for sure. So what? No hole-in-ones this week for the grandson?
No, they came up the lake though, and they were up there running around and doing all kinds of great stuff. We snuck in and snuck out. We're actually trying to do this right, and but it was really good to see them. It's been three months since I've hugged the kids, and I don't have much else going for me but those two. So we ran around and we brought out a whole bunch of Chinese food and ate and giggled and laughed and had a really good time. I love it when they ask me questions because you don't know where they're going to come from. No, they are funny.
They are.
So they were up there. So and they're kind of hurting too because they don't have any summer hockey. They don't have any summer baseball. They have all the rest of the summer sports, and they're without that as well. And you know, and it's like when you can lose skills when you don't participate, you know, and so golf is probably turning into his main one because they can go out and do that.
Sure.
So, but no, yeah, no kids to brag about this time.
What else? Anything?
Let me see here. Well, there's just a couple of things that, if I can find my list.
Well, while you're searching,
I want to just talk about a couple of.
Okay.
I've got a list here. This is what I took off. This is what I took off of the Facebook list, and so I just want to go over here. I noticed that of graduations here, Holly Wold, Kiam Gonzalez, Jacob Erickson, and Christian Nelson, all going to Bulldogs, all going to UMD. You've been recruiting those guys?
Absolutely.
And yeah.
And I think Ben Skifstead, I think you missed out on Ben Skifstead in that list.
He's going there too. Yeah, I haven't even got to him yet. Yes.
Yep.
And, you know, there's all these kids are going to UMD. They're going to ICC for become law nurses. A number of people going to law enforcement. A whole bunch of them going to engineering and mathematics. I blame you for that.
I'll take that blame.
And then Andrew Bulk, I like him. Always be yourself, unless you can be a drummer. Then always be a drummer. I don't know Andrew, but I think he's a drummer.
He is a drummer. He's a darn good drummer, and this pun intended, he walks to his own beat. There's no doubt about that. He you know, those drummers, there's a reason.
I don't know Andrew, but
they're a little different. So
yeah, I thought that he came across real well on that. You know, and it's just, there's a picture of Cullen Jensen in there holding up this beautiful walleye. Well, I know what he's going to be doing this summer. I hope he can find a job, but if he can't, he can always go out and catch some walleyes. There's some other people that I knew here. Hannah Mark, I know that family. Katie Ruport, Tessa Fredrickson, I've known since she was a little girl. She's going to be going to UMD. She's a great kid. I always loved Tessa. That was Bob Fredrickson's granddaughter, and he loved her too. He'd be very, very proud of her. Let's see, anybody else on here that's coming across? Mac Woods, Freddie Bartlett, Army Infantry.
Oh,
woo-ah, Freddie, woo-ah, way to go. I'm proud of him. It's the only guy that I went through the list that was heading for the military, but you know me, I love the infantry, so yeah. I'm pulling for him there. Macy Marcotte, I thank you last year, I told you this before, for inviting me to go over and watch that hockey game, because I saw the best Bronco girls goalie I've ever seen. She was just utterly amazing. And, you know, she's going to go to Bemidji and become an elementary teacher. And you take a look at her and you think, yeah, I'd turn my first grader over to her. She'd do just fine. So I'm wishing her just really good luck. And let me see here. You know, when I was a kid, my teacher, about the 6th grade, and the teacher brought in this lady. Her name was Miss Redpath, Jean Redpath, I believe her name was, and she had taught here prior to World War I. She'd been around for a long time, and she stood up and she said, "I'm here for one reason." She says, "I want to tell you that you are the most important resource that we have." And we all took a look at her. We're only 11 years old. You know, what do we know about resource? But the fact of it is, and judging from the circumstances of the world today, I suggest to these guys, and I go back and think about Anthony Sari, who said, "Always play the game like it's your last. It very well may be." And he figured it out. And I want to say to these kids, they are that valuable. They're the most precious resource we have. And this class, the class of 2000, I'll tell you what, they impressed me. There weren't a lot of them, but they impressed me. And the teachers and the I don't want to say administrators, but teachers and administrators and all the support staff that went with that, you deserve a lot of kudos for that, because it's a good group.
It is a good group. They've and you know, you always get a variety of kids that come through, and you're going to see a lot of different things. You're going to see a lot of kids be great when they get to be adults, and they think they already are adults, but we know better.
Well, this is what Hope Johnson says: we fall, we break, we fail, then we rise, we heal, and we overcome. Hope, you figured it out. Good luck to you, girl.
That pretty much says it all right there. That's what it's all
pretty
about.
much says it all. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, Mac Woods says it's only a flesh wound. That was his saying. So I had to jot that down too. It's only a flesh wound. You know these guys. You know how funny they can be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Wyatt Lesseman. He's got a picture of him strapped with a guitar on his back. He looks like Bob Dylan going down Highway 41, Highway 61. And I just thought, yeah, there's a guy kind of like the drummer. He strums his own guitar, and he didn't know where he was going, but he was going to go somewhere. Hey, I'll tell you, Wyatt, go for it, buddy. You look good. Yep. Anyway, those are just a few things that I have. I've got some other names down here, but I kept on writing them and kept on chuckling and kept on thinking, these are real live Broncos, real live Falls High kids, just like I was. Pretty proud of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully next week when we see you folks, we'll be doing it in person, not Zoom style. Which
outside? I think we can do it.
Which has grown tiresome. I hate to say it that way, but I'm ready to get things back to as normal as possible as soon as possible.
Well, somebody says we could have a virtual cocktail party, but Tim, it's not the same. It's just not the same.
Nope, I agree. Well, everybody, we'll talk to you next week. And George, you have a great one, and we'll get the details
everybody
in a few days.
Everybody stay safe. We'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. We'll see you, Tim.
We'll see you.